Let's come to the end of this little sequence of considerations. I talked the other day to Huan Yu, and he said, I just feel too young and my life still is already too short. There's so much I don't know and there is so much I would like to know. And it seems to be an endless story. One never comes really to an end that one can say, now I know enough. Okay, this was part of a conversation where we talked about different things, not least different in terms of being linked to things that are important, are contemporary, and at the same time then looking into history from where they develop and how this history actually plays a role still today. So the topic is today about this finite existence and the infinity of knowledge, the way or understanding what truth is. A very simple orientation there on truth is concerned with, on the one hand, we have congruence with reality, and we have the criterion of practice. But as soon as we leave simple issues of simple things being given, being obviously given, objects or situations, we enter paradox, pointing out the fact that truth is, in a way, unreachable. And I say unreachable, not unobtainable. Unobtainable would look at a different issue. It is then concerned with a mechanical reflection. In one way or another, an object is doubled. Be it by a photograph, by taking a photograph, by talking about and describing it precisely, or in any other way. Depends as well on the object. And this implies that truth is simply given by the fact that an object is given. And we can take it just a mirror of it and reflect it, or actually do not reflect upon it, but we share this as we share it with the harvest of a potato field. We give the information further, we pass it on, but there is this then, the difference coming up with a potato field. This kind of truth is simply given. But at the same time, the potato field, it cannot be changed anymore. This seems to be different when we look at truth. Truth is something that changes in history, and that actually is history. This harvest of a potato field that is there has, of course, its own history, but this is something we are not looking at. And then we take this kind of face value. Truth is something we cannot really take face value. Even the exact quantitative investigation requires something that is going beyond this, what we immediately see. And then the third point is looking at the potato field, looking at the harvest, this is definitely limited. We can take from this heap what is there, but that's basically it. We cannot go any further. With truth, it is a different thing. Truth is there to make more out of what we already know and to enhance this kind of knowledge And the point there is that at the very same time, we change the knowledge we have. We change as well the object we have. So there is this dichotomy, the paradox within Greek history by Zeno. And this says basically, we cannot reach a point without before having reached half of the distance. So if we want to go this distance, we first have to get here before we can get here. And the paradox is now that at the end of the day, it means that we can never ever reach here, because we always have to reach the half point before. Even if this half point is getting shorter and shorter, there is always a half point. We can go further and further into data, we can split it, and we never come to the final point. And this is different with truth. The amazing thing with truth, looking for truth, is that whenever we get there, we first have to get out and reach the truth to the entirety. And then, only then, with reflection, we can reach the final, not the final, we can reach a smaller point. Werner von Heisenberg once said, a physicist once said, even in science, meaning natural science, even in science, the object of research is no longer nature itself, but man's investigation of nature. So it's this reflexive process that even in science, as he says, even there we have this phenomenon that actually every time we look at something, we go further and further. It's this constructive element that plays a role, and where we can say, in a way, it's Zeno, it's this dichotomy reversed. So we have to arrive, before we arrive at details, we have to look at the overall, getting an overall understanding. Easily said, because there we are actually easily getting into trouble. There's the following alternative, because our own capacity, the individual capacity especially, is limited. So I come back to what my friend said, is limited. We cannot do what we should do. So the alternative is we skip the step one, we do not look at the entirety, but move immediately into the specialization. And in the worst case, it is not just specialization, but it is fragmentation. We don't know about the universe, but we know everything about tiny, tiny particles without having an understanding where they are belonging in this entirety. So the other way is we start looking at the universe, go the entire way down, going further down, going further down, and as I said, as our limited capacities, as our life is limited, we come up at the end with nothing. So I want to get some quote. It is from Stephen Jay Gould, who wrote a history on natural science. It is about the flamingo's smile, where he says, "We often think naively that missing data are the primary impediments to intellectual progress. The missing data. Just find the right facts and all problems will dissipate. But barriers are often deeper and more abstract in thought. We must have access to the right metaphor, not only to the requisite information. Revolutionary thinkers are not primarily gatherers of data, of facts, but weavers of new intellectual structures. I find this is beautifully saying what we really need, this entirety that we have to look at, that we have to search for. Now, what does it mean in practical terms? In practical terms, as I said, we have the alternatives. This is something that we actually, that doesn't work. And then we find in more realistic terms that we need deeper investigation, the challenge to maintain the twofold aspects of truth: congruence with reality and criterion on practice. I think this is today our main problem, to say practice can only be something that is societal practice, that is practice within a totality, if you want. So we have to look at reality, and the reality is, of course, limiting us. And this is why I say there is this huge difficulty. Practice is limiting us. If we look at research, if we look at programs, applications, what we have to do, what we have to publish, and at the same time, we have to overcome this limit by finding, with the flamenco, this revolutionary practice. It sounds a little bit pessimist, and I guess it is. But why this pessimism? And then I've come to the point that we are living in an infinite world. There is no end to it. We frequently speak about the end, it's coming, it's oil, peak oil, we are ruining the planet, and we have currently the movement again from the young people, which is very good. And finally, older people joining. But there is no end if we are realistically think about it. But then we have this finite personal existence and finite outreach. There is only so much we can do, and this is limited. Even if we have a long life, even if we have huge capacities, it is limited. And we come to this apparently pragmatic solution of looking at the infinitesimal solution in tiny, tiny things. That is what we can reach. And here comes my pessimism. We are looking at ever smaller entities, and we are limiting ourselves as well. We are limiting ourselves to this little laboratory and are forgetting that there is something else. And we are forgetting the need to work not only to knowledge, to truth, in the way of reflecting reality, but we have to look for the truth as well in terms of a paradigm shift. Pessimism? Perhaps pessimism in this way that, especially within our academic system, I would say the scientist, if he or she understands himself as committed to what science is and should be, is condemned to work against the mainstream, and it is this being condemned to loneliness of the scientist. Still, there is something we should not stop there, and we should not simply give in, but we have to try to get out and to move on, still together with others as far as we can, but still and again aware of the fact that these limits are something we have to keep in mind, and we have to keep in mind being critical about them as or by way of saying there is one point or another where we cannot move on, where we have to stop. Well, in this way, it is actually not about pessimism, really. It is about developing the courage to be involved on the one hand, but at the same time to not to be absorbed. Because being absorbed basically means that something very important will at the end be paralyzed. And this is, of course, curiosity. This is the key, and this is what we have to maintain. Thank you.
La raison donne en son cratère, c'est l'éruption de la fin. Du passé, faisons table rase, fous l'esclave debout, debout. Le monde va changer de base, nous ne sommes rien, soyons tous. C'est la lutte finale, groupons-nous, et demain, l'international sera le genre humain.